separate y'all over there?
I'm sorry, I had the giggles always.
It's Scott.
Okay, it is 4 o'clock, so we'll go ahead and get started with the Community Planning and Transportation Committee meeting for Thursday, January 23rd, 2025, our first meeting of the year. And we've got 3 items on the agenda this afternoon. The first one is our regular presentation from staff and discussion about public transit ridership and the overall report. And then this month, since we did not meet in December, we have both November and December reports included in the agenda. So we'll go ahead and let Taylor kick us off.
Thank you, Chair and Council. I'll try to be brief. I know you have other things on your agenda. First, on the cover memo here, I wanted to remind Council that we talked about the needs for security services at the transit center, and so we did that back in September. We talked about it with Embark some more, and next Tuesday for council consideration, you'll have on the agenda to possibly approve a contract amendment with Embark to provide security services at the transit center through their current contractor that provides the same services in Oklahoma City. So if that goes ahead, then they'll start providing services on February 1st, next Saturday. We'll monitor how the improvements that presence brings, and obviously come back to this council or this committee with anything that we have.
Will that be all 6 days of service?
Yeah, it'll be shown in the agenda item, but it'll be for now 8 hours a day, Monday through Saturday. So we can play with the hours, but initially it'll be 2 p.m. to 8 or 2 p.m. to 10 p.m. Monday through Friday, so the end of service, and then 11 to 7, which is just 1 hour shy of the entire service on Saturdays. So yeah, so we'll keep monitoring that situation and keep this committee apprised of that. We also have an update on our 6 cutaway or shuttle buses that we purchased for the paratransit fleet. We were hoping to get them in this month, but it looks like it'll be March. The CNG conversion is taking longer than we had hoped, so we're anxiously awaiting those to replace 6 more units in the fleet that have been that need to be retired. And then with that, since we have 2 months worth of reports, both for fixed route, paratransit, and Norman On Demand, I hope to jump to those numbers. And for both months, for all modes of service, we've seen an increase in ridership, which is pretty remarkable. For November, we had just shy of 42,000 riders on the fixed route and paratransit service, and that's up about 10,000 rides over the last November. And then for December,
And November is the first month we're comparing.
right,
We started the new routes in October of 2023.
right,
And so November of 2024 is the first month where we've been running the new routes for a full year.
right, and we're still seeing an increase, which I think is great. And I'd like to point out too that we started in October of this past year, we started the frequency increase on West Lindsay, and it's up about 2,000 rides, or 37% in November. And then in December, it's up about just shy of 2,000 rides in December as well. So I think that's a good showing for that frequency increase. It seems the riders are taking advantage of that. And then overall for December, we were up to 38,000 rides compared to about 31,000 rides last December. So still clipping along a good pace. I think we're aiming at maybe 450 to 480,000 riders this year, which is up from about 400,000 the previous year. So we're excited.
Next month we'll have the year total for 2024.
We do it by fiscal year. And we can certainly look at calendar year, but we're just projecting out that we're thinking about having about 450 to 480,000 by the end of the fiscal year.
Definitely more riders in calendar year 2024 than 2023.
Should be, yeah, if I had to go back and look, yeah.
Yep.
And then for Norman On Demand, it's the same scenario where in November, and those are the last 2 sheets in your report. For November, we were just shy of 4,000 rides at 3,920, and that's about 1,000 more than last November, or 37%. And then in December, it's a little bit less of an increase, but still, I think a significant one at 22%. So we had just shy of 3,400 rides, above 2,600 last December. So again, people taking advantage of this service as well that's out there. And yeah, with that, I'll be happy to take any questions that you guys see in these reports or anything else transit related, or let you move on with your.
On the on-demand, are there reported issues of long wait times or not getting picked up at all because there's so much demand, there's not enough drivers or cars working or anything like that?
So we don't really hear many complaints about that. I think folks either take the rides they're proposed, or they figure out another way to get home if it's too long, or they don't get a proposal they like, right? But in our KPIs, or key performance indicator measures, on the first page of our Norman On Demand report, like average rider wait time, we want it to be 15 minutes or less. It's hovering for this fiscal year around 22 minutes. It's not great, but we're not hearing complaints either. Like I said, the average, and then we also look at walking distance, which the walking distance is well within what we're wanting. It's 0.06 miles, and we're wanting it below 0.1 miles. So I would say overall the service is probably performing pretty well to people's expectations, especially if they're not complaining too much. But we could decrease those numbers with additional service, right? We could, if we had more drivers and vehicles on the road.
Councilor Hinkle?
I'll just say that this morning at the point in time count, this was a hot topic of discussion, and everybody was really complimentary and grateful for it. So I just wanted to pass that along to you since we were going to be here today. But I think this is a great program, and it seems to really be serving a good segment of the community.
The Norman On Demand program specifically. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, we were a little skeptical when we started it, but I think it's shown to be a pretty efficient service. The number that really we should pay attention to is that ridership per service hour. And fiscal year to date, it's at 6, and December is actually 6.2. So that basically means for any hour of service, so one vehicle on the road, it could have, if there's 2 vehicles on the road per hour, that's 2 service hours. We're averaging about 6 people, or 6 riders per service hour, which is really well. Our contractor VIA, who provides service across the country, this is outpacing all their other services. So it is definitely filling a need. People are using it, even though it's late night mostly and on Sundays.
And when would the council need to make a decision about whether to continue doing it another year? Which would be August, right?
We as staff have submitted that for a budget consideration with our annual budget process. So that'll be up to the city manager's office and council as they go through the budget process.
Okay. I did want to note too about the just on the transit fleet, the only 3 left from the OU transfer, and that was one of our biggest concerns when we took over the transit system. Was we were inheriting a whole fleet of old vehicles that were some already past their life before we even took them over, and we weren't sure how we were going to come up with money to replace all of them. Buses are expensive. We know with fire trucks and trash trucks how expensive those are. Staff's done a really great job at securing funding, grant funding and federal funding, and pretty much any way possible to do this replacement. We've almost got the whole thing replaced.
Yeah, and we actually have funding for 2 more big buses. We're just trying to get this next order off our plate so we can move forward with that one, but we should be close to moving forward with that. And I'll say the last 5.5 years, we couldn't have replaced as many buses without council support either. We need that local match to be able to go after those dollars. So I appreciate all the support.
All right, any further questions from public transit? Questions, comments? Mayor Hackman.
Are there any demographics on where most of the trips are coming from and to? Are they mostly going to the hospital from a resident, or?
So that's a great question and something we may follow up in a couple months. MBART just completed a customer satisfaction survey, and they have some data on that, and I was gonna look at one of your next meetings this spring to come back. We did that a few years ago. They took a break for 2 or 3 years due to funding for the survey, but they did it last year, and hopefully we can come back to you with those results and have a consultant present that to you. But it does seem like majority, when I was skimming through results, the majority of trips are either education or work, so. But they'll be able to tell you more details of that.
And to add on to that, was with on-demand specifically, do we have data on how are people using it? Where are they going?
Yeah, we can definitely dive into that. Because it's so point to point, we can actually look at the addresses that people are going to and from and, throw it on a heat map and really see the areas of town that they're going to.
If nothing further, then we'll go ahead and move on to thank you, Taylor.
Yep, thank you.
The second item on our agenda is a discussion about minimum lot size. And we have our planning director here and our public works director both to lead us in that discussion.
She's gonna get you, Scott.
It was jammed in there, it wasn't coming out.
It's been a day. Good afternoon, thank you. So the item that we're going to talk to you about, obviously Scott Sturz is here because what we're going to be talking about is subdivision of property overall, and that goes through Scott's department, so I want to make sure Scott was here for any questions or comments on that as well. We have two subdivision scenarios. We have the greenfield development where we have the large acreage split into the smaller lots. It's a typical subdivision, single family subdivision that you'll see. And then we have infill properties where you might have a larger lot and you come in and you do a short form plat and you create two lots out of it. One of the things that we might be concerned with is, as we do this, is whether or not you take off the back piece of a lot to create a second lot that somebody might be able to sell off. Would that negatively impact the existing lot with the existing structure, taking it under what would be required for the square footage? Like, if it's 4,500 square feet, 6,000 square feet, and if you cut it in half, you're looking at 3,000 square feet. So we've essentially created a non-conforming lot, so that's a concern for us. So for the must-haves that we talked about, or that what we looked at, we need to make sure that we have street frontage, and that would be for addressing. And in some cases that could even be a flag lot. And I'll show you a picture here in a minute where they might be subdividing it. If they had enough square footage, they might be subdividing it and bringing a panhandle down the side, and that would give them the frontage that they might need. But again, we have to look at what the square footage would be. And then also we have to look at the emergency vehicle access. Do we have enough room to get them back there to the units? Utility access, again, I'll show you that on a site plan here in just a second. We want to make sure that we have public access for those. And then meeting the setbacks, which I kind of went over a little bit, as well as the coverage for both lots. And then the last thing on this slide too, I want to make sure that we're clear on, and some people are not clear on this, and so they might think that you could just easily subdivide a lot and you'd come in and apply to the city and you'd be able to subdivide it. Well, you're still going to have to go through the process, and it's what we call the short form plat. It does not take as much time typically as you would for a standard single family subdivision for one of the Brookhaven subdivisions or something, but they're still going to have to do that, and that is time and it is money. So I just want to make sure that we're all clear that we still have to go through the legal subdivision of a property.
Yeah, and I might add that another reason that we really have to have that street frontage, that we have to have that connection to the street, is for access.
If you don't have legal right to get from the street to your property, another property owner owns that, they can cut you off your property. And, you know, especially when we start talking about taking larger lots and trying to subdivide it, now you gotta start thinking about, what about emergency access? If the ambulance shows up and they can't get through a locked gate and there's no other access to get to a lot that's in the rear. So that's something we have to be really aware of and really thoughtful about, is making sure that we can get emergency services as well as utilities, trash service, all the other things that we need to get to a site. But that's one of the main considerations. That's why we always want to have that street frontage, though, is for that. And some of the examples we'll show you are some innovative ways that we've gotten around that and made subdivisions work in creative ways with developers.
So this example that we wanted to show you, this is Fountain View North, and you can see they have these panhandles that come down and they're 10 feet, but overall that's actually an easement for property owners to utilize this drive that's between those lots and those structures, but they all have frontage to whatever street this would be down here at the bottom.
So in essence, we've created a stacked housing. You've got 3 houses stacked behind each other, more or less, but everyone has access and right-of-way access directly to the roadway. So it worked out really well.
Yeah, and this was a new subdivision that went in. It wasn't a retrofit on anything. Same thing for this one. This was McCoop Edition. Several of you may have seen this on council last year or so. You can see here on the top of the lots, they had the panhandle lot come out, but there's also an easement there that the south lot can access their lot as well. So, and then the last one is in that same general area. This was over on Lindsay. To the west of this is it's the restaurant. I can't say the name of it now, but Lindsay and Berry, essentially. This is just east of that. But the same thing, this rear lot actually panhandles up to Lindsay, and then you have the 2 lots that are on either side of the panhandle there. So they all have frontage, and again, this is a newer development that came in. They weren't trying to retrofit anything.
Well, actually, there was an existing house. They maintained the existing house and they want to build 2 more houses. So in this case, it is kind of taking a large lot, retrofitting it and getting more lots for higher density out of it by the subdivision of the lot.
True. I forgot about that. And so then we put this one in there as well. This is 904 Miller. The slide on the left, or the aerial on the left, showed the older home that was there. They demoed that. And the aerial on the right shows that they built the new house, and then they also put a garage apartment in the back. But this is also a perfect example of, this is a really deep lot, but even if they did, cut this off in the back, the front house would not meet what we would have as the rear setback requirement, nor would the structure in the rear meet the setback requirements. And I feel sure that the structure in the rear would probably be over the 65%. I could be wrong, but I think it would be hard to meet that one. Did I miss a slide? No, okay. So some of the unintended consequences that we wanted to talk about, like we said, is the water sewer connections. And then again, I'll show you these in the next slides. The setbacks, coverage, those will have to change overall in the zoning code if we were going to do this. And not to jump ahead too far, but we are going to be redoing the zoning code. The subdivision regs will be part of that. So, if this is something that you guys want to look at, that's definitely something we can look at moving forward instead of trying to retrofit some of this. And then the last bullet on here, as always, the lots with the greater coverage, ultimately, we're going to end up with drainage concerns if we don't address those overall.
Yeah. Basically, well, if we start exceeding that 65% on the lots, now we're beyond what the design capacity was, even in newer developments. We planned for 65% coverage, and if we start getting to those higher ranges, we have to do something to address that, much like what we've done in Center City Form-Based Code, where we've written in some some ways that they can offset that by doing some low-impact development, but there would be things we'd have to look at and be able to account for so that we don't start overwhelming our existing systems.
And so then the examples that I pulled in, the slide on the left, obviously, you know, they have 22 feet on the west side of their house. So if they wanted to, because I don't think that they would get another access point off Berry, but, you know, so they would be coming in off of Cruz. So realistically, you know, if they wanted to, they could get a driveway that would go in the back. But if you look at the slide on the right, you'll see that the sewer connection is in the back. And if we cut this off and create a lot in the back, we've essentially cut off the sewer access, or it would be through an easement, I guess, for the house in the front. Same thing, the water is on the front here, so then we'd have to run the water through their lot to get to the people in the back. So I don't know if you want to talk more about that, but those are just some genuine concerns that we have when we move forward to, if we were to do this,
Yeah,
trying to retrofit again.
Through the platting process and short form plat, we'd have to look at that and make sure there are adequate access from the public roadways as well as easements to accommodate not only water and sewer, but we also got to think about natural gas, electric, cable, phone. So there'd have to be easements in there, and it's not a problem, it's just something that's have to be addressed and really thought through. But when you do see the water and sewer on opposite sides of the lot, it does start to become a little more complicated. It may take a little more easement to be put in there. Then you always start running the problem of, well, what if somebody decides to put their shed across that easement? And now you're impeding their right to it. It's not a total impediment, but it's something you have to be aware of and really would have to treat and be aware of.
Yeah, and this is just the same thing. The first one was a corner lot, so I wanted to show, you know, the corner lot, but then also this is an interior lot. They have 21 feet on the east side of their lot, but again, same scenario. You've got the sewer in the back, you've got the water in the front, so cutting those off just could create concerns in the long run. And then just unintended consequences again, you know, the infill development, just because of the pictures I was just showing you, you know, when we look at it, we think that for this scenario, that the overall infill development would be minimal in these situations, maybe not with some ADUs or something, but with standalone lots that you're creating, we think that that would be minimal. Again, the core area lots, a lot of those older homes, they're probably at 4 feet on the side. We have some of the larger lots that might be able to do it. And then, you know, there's the concern that if people got the idea to start doing this, would they just go through and start clearing some of our older housing stock to be able to do these short form plats and subdivide these properties only to come in with newer, and it kind of gets away from the whole idea of being able to have affordable housing for individuals that could buy a smaller piece of property. So that's our presentation, and I do want to circle back and just reiterate, you know, again, we are going to do the update to the zoning code. We are going to look at the subdivision regulations. And while with your direction, we would go ahead and start looking at some of this, but I think as we move forward and updating the subdivision regulations, we can look at, and the zoning code, we can look at reducing some of the lot sizes that we have now, whereas we had 6,000 square feet for a single family home, maybe we did 3,500. I don't know. You know, this is just a process as we would go through and evaluate some of that. But we are looking to you guys for your direction on where you want to go with it.
So, in any circumstance, a developer wants to develop an empty piece of land could propose larger lot sizes or smaller, right? And we have the ability to approve it or not. I think from my perspective, the intent is primarily focused on new development, that if a greenfield is being developed, that new subdivision isn't required to have X size lots, that if they wanted to, they could plan for smaller ones and accommodate for all those issues that you mentioned. So I agree that it would be difficult to retroactively do that where it's already been built out. I could see where if there's a large existing lot in central Norman that has one big house on it, if somebody wanted to be able to put in 4 houses where there was this one large house, and they're closer together, and nobody would have to live there. It'd be your choice to live wherever you want. But I think that would be the intent from my perspective, of primarily focused on making better, more efficient use out of land if we're going to develop currently greenfield, and ways we can make better, more efficient use of land in the core where it's scarce if something is going to be redeveloped like that. That would kind of be my intent.
Mayor Heckle, it would be kind of scary to get rid of backyards too. And for however many years, we had sewers that went down alleys and water that went down streets, and use that kind of a rule. I agree with Councilmember. If it was a new development, that's an easy deal. If it's retrofitting these back things, unless it's for an ADU, it's gonna, and that relieves a parking problem, because now there's a place in that access and that drive to be able to park that car. I'd have trouble with it in most, but we did that down on Lindsay. What was the one? Just,
The one on Imhoff and
was it Imhoff? I remember Lindsay, and there was an existing house, and we went right below it.
oh yeah, yes.
But it was a big old
Yeah,
lot.
Lindsay and Barry on the other side of the
Somewhere-
street.
Yeah, that's where it was. And so sometimes
We've done a couple of those lately where we've had, they've come in and they've done a short form plat. We did it, I can't think of the streets off the top of my head, but there was a large lot and they came in and they did that so they could build 2 structures. So that's something that we do it now, and we would continue to do that.
Councilor Revenge.
no, I'm done, thank you.
Councilor Ramsey.
Similar thoughts there. My other concern would be the creation of these spaces in Core Norman to be used for short-term rentals, which just further exacerbates the affordable housing argument. So same discussion here. I think.
Like you said, we do have some that we've done in town on the older, larger lots. But they do have access, and they've been able to get that panhandle lot and everything, so.
Some of the benefits that I was looking at about it, just one of those little policy changes that could help address housing affordability by making better or more efficient use of land. But it talked about increased housing supply and affordability as smaller lots allow for more homes to be built on the same amount of land, increasing the housing supply. Smaller lots typically lead to lower land and construction costs per home, making housing more affordable theoretically. And flexibility, allowing for diverse housing types such as tiny homes, duplexes, cottage clusters, and trying to cater to different needs and income. And then, efficient land use. There's some environmental benefits, economic diversity, innovation in housing design potentially. And a lot of cities are looking at policies like this to try to address housing cost and population growth and trying to keep up with demand, and while also being conscious of the space that we have. We have 200 square miles of Norman city limits, but would it be the best thing to try to develop all of it? No. And it would be very expensive from an infrastructure standpoint, all that. So that's just some of the stuff I was reading about potential benefits of it, especially when it comes to new development in greenfield and making more efficient use of space, and not requiring that, you're going to put in this, you have to have these lots and all that. So,
And this has been a lot, there's been a lot of discussion in the committees for AIM about looking at reducing the lot sizes that we have right now. And when we do that, when we do our updates, because right now, if you want to do less than the 6,000 square feet, you're looking at doing a PUD. And if we can get the zoning code updated and get the subregs in line, then that means somebody could come in and all they'd be doing is platting versus having to, get an attorney to write a PUD or something like that, so.
and that could lower the cost for a builder to build the homes, and ideally, theoretically, lead to lower rents. But,
Yeah, and that's kind of been our goal coming out of AIM, is moving forward with that. And then we got the grant, so have some money for that too, so.
Okay.
Yeah, I think we all agree that allowing different housing opportunities, different housing types, it doesn't have to be what Norman's built for 40 years, is a good thing.
All right, any other comments or questions from committee? What would be the next steps? A full council study session, council approval?
Well, in my mind, the next step is get AIM adopted.
Okay. So this
And-
is gonna be part of that, not a separate,
Yeah,
change
I
in-
would like, I would like to be able to incorporate this as we move forward with the updates. And then obviously, get input from the community and everything, but definitely make those changes, reduce those lot sizes that we have right now.
I think it just
This would be
becomes
new.
part of the process with the update to the zoning and subregs. And we just address it at that time. I think that we just take council's input. I don't think that we need any formal action at this point to move forward with that.
this isn't, if this is part of the plan and approved, adopted by council, nobody's existing property is changing without their permission.
Correct.
Nobody's lot size is changing on their
No.
current house without their
No.
permission, nothing like that, right?
And there's,
I think you're asking if it would be like adopted with AIM. Is that what you were saying?
Well, like if I live on a house and I have a 6,000 square foot lot and the city says we're not gonna have lot minimum sizes anymore, doesn't change my property at all.
Correct. Nothing changes.
no, what I was just gonna say too is, what we're talking about, the updates for the zoning code and the subregs, that's not part of AIM, but it is reflected as one of the goals in AIM, and so that's what we'll move forward with after we get AIM done.
I think it's a key piece of that, for sure. Okay, I'm supportive of myself for sure, so. Anything further from the committee about this item? Okay. Thank you very much, Jane, I appreciate that.
Thank you.
And our third item on the agenda is a discussion regarding traffic calming on 48th Avenue Northwest. And we have Public Works Director here and other staff in the Public Works Department to lead this discussion with us.
Thank you very much. Happy to come and discuss this today. David Riesland, our transportation engineer, is joining me. That way I don't say something wrong. You can make sure we get it all right and state it correctly. We really want to open this up, make it a little more of a discussion of 48th Avenue Northwest in total, because there's a lot that goes on here. There's a lot of things that we'd like to just make sure that we get everything out on the table and have a good, positive discussion about it. First off, I just kind of want to talk about the area that I think that we primarily want to focus on today, from Main Street to Robinson. We've got Main Street there in the lower right to Robinson in the upper left, so you're traveling north from right to left. Just so we kind of have a visual, so we can kind of see what the area looks like. And if we need to, we can come back to this and have a visual so we can talk from. But I just kind of wanted to get that up there and just kind of have that for us to look at. A little bit of background. This is an area that we receive quite a few complaints on, several a year. We do a lot of studies down in this area. We do a lot of time down policing this area. We put speed feedback trailers in this area. And so it's someplace that we're well aware of. We've worked in this area a lot. We've got a lot of data, a lot of years of experience of looking in this area. And I think that's what's kind of started this conversation today was Resolution R242578, which was withdrawn by staff at the request of council on January 14th. And that was just to fund the mill and overlay of the street. That was really what that was for. And where that funding was coming from is basically over the 4 years that we've been completing the street maintenance bond, we've had accumulated savings in projects, and we wanted to take that money, get council to put 2 new projects in the bond, this and Interstate Drive, basically behind UNP, which if you drive it, it is awful. That knocks your teeth out. It's really bad. So we asked to put money in to be able to take and do a mill and overlay on those roadways. So that's what that vote was for. However, we have been looking at this project for a long time. We're going to discuss where it originated from, where it came from, and the recommendations for it. But basically, that has been stated to be a great location to do a road diet. In fact, we've already started it. The first 400 feet, starting at Robinson going south, we've already completed the road diet. It's been there for about 7 years now. So this isn't a new thing that we've just come up with. It's something that's been discussed, studied, and we do believe it is the best alternative for the safety and well-being in this area. Also, just kind of want to state, we get a lot of questions of why did staff make that decision? Staff doesn't necessarily make decisions. It's like in this case, we will get several concerns in one area, and we'll go out and do a study. We'll have it studied if we can't do it in-house. Whether that's a stop sign, a traffic signal change, a lane striping configuration, anything to do with traffic, we're going to study it, make sure that the decisions we make will meet MUTCD, will meet Federal Highway Administration, so that we're meeting all the applicable rules and laws that govern our traffic. So that's something that we're very cautious of. We don't just randomly say, we think that's a good place for a stop sign and go throw it in. Or we like a road diet, let's go put it over here. We have studies, we have backup data that help support the ideas to move in that direction. In this case, we have the 2014 comprehensive plan that was adopted by council in May of 2014. This was a very long process, took about a year. A year and a half. We had a 40-member committee, citizen committee, along with probably another 20 or so staff members involved, multiple public meetings, multiple trips back to discuss it with council. So a very long, drawn-out, thoughtful plan. Just to kind of for your overview, the primary goal was to plan for a well-balanced transportation system that offers choices in how people travel, and it's supported by a realistic plan to fund these improvements. There's some guiding principles in that document. Just a couple of them that really apply directly here. Number one is the objective S1. It's under a special place to live. And that's adopt policies, ordinance, and programs that promote multimodal, context-sensitive considerations and aesthetics into the planning and project funding of transportation facilities in Norman. Basically, we're going to quit designing just for the automobile. We need to be allowing for bicycles, pedestrians, scooters, buses, and whatever else comes along next. So that was kind of a big change here in Norman. We really always designed solely on capacity. The second one is mobility, which is objective M6, and that's to provide a network of bicycle and pedestrian facilities, including sidewalks, bike routes, bike lanes, and paths that provide mobility options for connectivity and recreational opportunities. So in our guiding principles of this document, this was the type of things that we were trying to make sure that we got and that we put into effect. Kind of continuing on, in Chapter 2, they talk about on-street bicycling. In many cases, the bicycling can be approved by narrowing lanes or eliminating a travel lane, which both those are considered a road diet. Either one can be applicable depending on the roadway. And then also it identified bicycling short-range needs, expanding the network of multi-use paths, hike and bike trails throughout Norman to provide increased opportunities for utilitarian and recreational riding. So again, it's throughout this document. Continuing Chapter 3, in the master plan, add bike lanes along Main Street from Cherry Creek to 48th Avenue West and along 48th Avenue West from Main Street to Indian Hills Road. We also, a complete street, that's the idea of every mode of transportation is included in the roadway, not just cars. It talks about coming up with effective policies that create soft and inviting road networks for everyone, including bicycles, drivers, transit operators, pedestrians, and people of all ages and abilities. And then it contains plans for enhancement of existing roadways, sidewalks, and bicycle facilities to bring facilities up to complete street standards. Also in Chapter 3, and something that I think plays in really well here, is this is a minor arterial roadway, is our classification of roadway. We have multiple classifications, and with our new CTP, we finally had options that was more than just a 4-lane road section. We have a 4-lane divided, we have a 3-lane, we have a 3-lane divided, if I remember correctly. Mm-hmm. So we have multiple options, and those give us an opportunity to design the road for the need and for what would fit the best in that location. And that's a really big change that we really utilize a lot, and we really do look at those quite seriously. So chapter 4, we get a little more direct. Action item M2O was improve 48th Avenue from west from Indian Hills to Main Street. It said to widen the existing 2-lane road to a 3-lane roadway with bike lanes in each direction and an 8-foot wide sidewalk along the eastern side of the roadway. Develop and design and arrange funding and schedule for implementation. We realize this is talking about widening a 2-lane road, but the previous section discussed putting bike lanes on the 4-lane section. So, and then it's from Main to Indian Hills. It all really kind of goes together. I think just was written a little awkward here. And then also in the short-range bicycle network improvements action, M6A, restripe identified existing streets to install bike lanes, and this was identified. So when we start talking about the implementation, we've kind of talked about that just a little bit here. In this case, to be able to get the bike lanes in this stretch through this corridor, it would require a road diet down from 4 lanes to 3 lanes, and then we'd have room for the bike lanes. The best time ever to put in a bike lane is when you've got fresh pavement. When we go out there and we try to grind off the striping, it leaves marks. People get confused. They don't know which ones are supposed to follow. Anytime we can do it with a fresh slate, it's best. We talked about that a lot on the Porter Corridor. What would be the appropriate timing? And so that's what we've looked at. And then, by the way, that is a picture of Rock Creek Road showing you basically what the road section would look like. That's it. Center turn lane, 1 lane in each direction, and then bike lanes on the edges. Because we had this project, 48th does need some attention. It's getting a little beat up. It's time to do some work out there. We coordinated between our divisions and Public Works, and it seemed like the right time to try to move this up and doing the resurfacing. And that gave us the opportunity to complete this section of roadway that we've already started and to meet the goals that are set out in the Comprehensive Transportation Plan. But another thing that I just feel like if I don't discuss it, I'll be at fault here. In the Comprehensive Transportation Plan, one of the recommendations was to get a complete streets policy. And you have allowed us to do that in the latest revision or the latest version of our engineering design criteria adopted by council. There is a complete street manual in there. It's a great document. I think David and I were working on it almost 10 years ago. Mm-hmm. I think we were working on it during the CTP, in fact. Or was it just after?
It was just after.
Just after. So it's been a long time. So we do have that now. And it also supports all of the ideas that are here and that are discussed. I kind of want to take a minute, and this is that section of roadway that's already striped with the bike lane on the one side. So you can see that we've already started it. So it's not something that's new. That's 7 years old, that striping. But there's a lot of things that go into the evaluation of where we're going to put a road diet and why. And I thought we'd kind of discuss a little bit how these apply here. One, traffic volumes. We do look at that because capacity is important. We don't want to create log jams and people not being able to move. That's never a good thing. So we do look at traffic volumes. That's a very important consideration. This street, the traffic volumes are suitable to be a 3-lane roadway. It would work with the volumes that exist today. Another thing we got to discuss is future growth potential. I'm kind of jumping down the list, but it kind of fits here. When you look at this section, there's only like 3 lots that can be developed on the roadway. The neighborhoods are there may be a couple of lots left in the neighborhoods, but not many. So really, there's no future growth in this area that would make us have to increase capacity. So that's another consideration that we look at. Speed. Are we having speeding issues? According to the calls we get, everybody calls it Highway 48 because everybody drives 80 miles an hour. That's what I get told every time I take the phone call. So speeding is an issue here. Road diets do slow cars down. You don't have that free flow of 2 lanes. It feels a little bit tighter. It does cause cars to slow down and reduce speed within the corridor. Another thing to really consider is the number of streets and driveways. There's not a lot of streets and driveways in this corridor. When you really look at it, there's just a few streets with very few independent driveways coming out. So that really benefits this also. Comparison, you look at a main street with all the driveways. That's a hard one to do because there's so many cars coming in and out. You talked about future growth. And then also, is it a place and a location where the addition of multimodal options are beneficial? And we think that this is a location that's beneficial. I'd also mention that going to the north, we do have projects in the 2019 transportation bond that will go, there's 2 projects from Robinson to Rock Creek, then Rock Creek to Tecumseh. And both those will be a 3-lane section. We are actually going to a multimodal path through that section. Really, we've heard from the cyclists, they prefer that. Here, we just don't have the space in some areas to do that effectively due to either grading problems or just because of the space we have. So that's what makes it better here. And we already have the curb here. So we just have wasted space out there on the roadway. I know that there's some challenges. I know that we've received comments, and I know that many of you have received comments from some of the neighbors in that area saying that they do not support the road diet and they do not support the addition of the bike lanes. Just nationwide statistics show that 8.3% of households don't own a car. That number tends to be going up, not down. And by doing this and adopting a complete street and doing what our EDC says, what our CTP says, this would give us a whole corridor from Main Street all the way to Indian Hills. That would be bicycle friendly and bicycle compliant. It also improves traffic flow for, other users in the area. So with that, that's kind of what we have. I'm happy to have further discussion on it. We do think that, we've had citizens say, we need to put in a stop sign at this location. We go out there and it doesn't meet stop warrants. There's not enough traffic to warrant there being a stop sign to stop traffic. You don't put them in as a traffic slowdown. You put them in because you need it for the turning movements. So that's really not a viable option. We've had the option, it's been requested to put up the speed feedback signs. What we've found is that those are effective for a short time period and then everybody starts trying to get the high score on them. I love them because I drive a Jeep that my speedometer's off and I can check it, so I like them. But, we don't think that's a long-term solution. We think that if we really want to slow traffic down, and we also get complaints about it's hard to cross the roads here. Well, people aren't using the intersections. It's definitely easier to cross 3 lanes without an intersection than it is 4. I did during this, when this was all starting up, because I think our first correspondence about this was the 1st of December when we really started talking about it. And shortly after that, I went out, I spent 2 mornings driving up and down the corridor myself. I know David and his team have done multiple studies out there and traffic counts. I drove up and down it from 7:30 to 8:30 for 2 days, and I felt that this was a good, viable candidate for a road diet. Personally, on my professional experience, I know that David and his staff support that decision also.
Okay, Mayor Hackler?
Are we legally obligated to follow a plan that we made in 2014? Do we have any bonds out on this? Is there anything that makes us have to do this?
There is no bond funding currently for this corridor, for this mile of 48th. But the CTP was adopted and it does have recommendations. So by that, that kind of gives us our go forth and do this. So we utilize that as, as the starting point for this. But no, there are no current bond funds. But that resolution that we brought was to move funds, street maintenance bond funds, to be able to do the mill and overlay.
Right, and I nothing wrong with the procedure in there. What I would ask that we do is do a little more study. We can do this not at any given time because I realize there are schedules that have to be met. But we could do this after we had a public meeting, sat down and talked about it with the residents, because there seems to be, I probably get as many as you do, emails that are saying, no, don't do this. Let's talk about it and put it into perspective with the people, and then go on to make whatever the decision becomes. If we are legally obligated to do it, I wouldn't stand in your way, because I don't want to go to jail. And so if we sit down there and talk to the people, it may do just as a personal thing, it is confusing, that little 700-foot road diet part that we have in there. I'm used to it because I go through that intersection a lot. But if you weren't, it is confusing in there. And there aren't many bicycles out there. If you want to go from Robinson to Tecumseh, bingo. That multimodal trail is absolutely needed to get bicyclists down there. We're going through it 40 plus miles an hour. That's a good place to separate them. I just don't know that I'm 100% behind this, but that would be my recommendation, that we not necessarily table, but that we have a discussion later.
Well, and, you know, I do use that for cycling, by the way.
Oh, do you?
And I know lots of people who are cyclists that do. They may not be there Monday at 8 o'clock, but on weekends and evenings, I know quite a few people who do use it. But I will say that we haven't done a traffic change in my time here that as soon as we do it, we don't get somebody, why'd you put that stop sign up? Are you guys idiots? Don't you know what you're doing? We take a stop sign down. Why'd you take that stop sign down? Now people are gonna die.
Yeah.
So we're used to any change that we make, we always get negative comments. There's always a backside to it. But usually, I can't say that there's very many that we've done that over time haven't proven to be accurate and correct.
Councilor Montano.
Let's see, so, kind of on the mayor's point, I mean, I understand we have the 2014 plan, but we also have the AIM transportation plan coming. And, this was 10 years old, and since we're not legally obligated by any bond terms to do this, I definitely am not in support of the road diet, but I would like to explore other options, other solutions to the speeding. That way people can cross 48th reasonably, like a flashing crosswalk, signs. I mean, something else besides the road diet for now. I mean, I understand the mill and roadway and you have to do your normal maintenance. So, and I just
Well,
don't think now
if we're not
might
gonna
not,
do-
now might not be the time to do the road diet. But
Well, if we're not gonna
definitely
do the
more
road diet,
conversation,
then
more
we'll postpone
studies.
this for a few more years and we'll take those funds to another project. Because it needs it, it's a good time to get it done. But I would say that if we wanna alter the current plan, I would like to have a resolution from council changing the plan. Because I've got council direction asking me to go do that, so we need that. And it's gonna be in the new plan to say this is still not completed and still is an ongoing. So we'd want to get that removed, if that's the direction that council wants to go.
Scott, and just for clarification, so I'm understanding this correctly. 2019 transportation bond does provide from Robinson to Tecumseh will be 3 lanes.
Yes,
So that is something that we're legally obligated to do based on the 2019 bond funds. This involves Main Street to Robinson. That wasn't included in the 2019 transportation bond, but effectively you're gonna have 4 lanes tapering down to 3 lanes when you go across Robinson. So you're just looking for the possibility of making that consistent through that corridor. So instead of 4 lanes from Main Street to Robinson and then down to 3 lanes from Robinson to Tecumseh, that's what you're looking at. So there is a legal obligation from Robinson to Tecumseh to make that 3 lanes.
right.
One other thought I would like to leave people with, this whole project on 48th Avenue was sort of born out of what happened at the Rhodes intersection with the AT&T box. They put up a box that blocks sight distance if you're trying to look north along 48th Avenue Northwest. What the road diet does is it pushes the travel lane slightly to the east. So you can see further around that box now than you can in a current 4-lane configuration.
Councilor Brink.
I'm sure it's probably a lot more costly to do this, but has there been any request or input for like curbed medians, maybe? As the turn lane in the middle and making it more of a beautification thing as opposed to just a road diet? Or is that just way out of the realm of
That could be a possibility. I'm trying to think. I'd have to.
I mean, there was the one picture, the one slide that you showed that had the turn lanes all the way down the middle. I'm just curious if, kind of not exactly how it's done on Lindsay, but a similar.
That would be a much different project than what's proposed right now for the mill and overlay, because that would require removal, and then if you're gonna try to plant there, you've got to come back and put in appropriate soils. So to make that change would be more, and right now we're just proposing, literally you just grind off 2 inches, put down a fresh 2 inches to give it a better surface and extend the life of the pavement. That would be more of a full-blown roadway project. It would be something more like we would consider in a bond package. Don't hate it, I kind of like it, but.
I was just thinking,
And it's weird,
in consideration of the residents,
Yeah.
maybe something that was a little bit more.
there's small sections there that you could utilize. A lot of it, you'd wind up almost with your turn lanes almost starting to butt each other. So there's, if you look at the area there between, like Kathy Lynn and Rhodes on the lower right, actually between Manor Hill, you may be able to do it in there. It would just take a little bit of looking at and playing with.
Check with the Lindsay Street merchants after that project got done and see what the popularity of that was.
Well, but we're talking about residences here,
Yeah.
not businesses. It's a little different comparison.
So other random questions, just in talking to residents, so is the purpose of bike lanes to receive federal funding?
No.
Is AT&T going to move their new boxes, the ones that were installed, to the north at the corner of Rhodes and 48th, when they complete installing their fiber?
No.
If the crosswalks are put in place similar to the crosswalk at Main Street and Low Branch Road, would the neighborhood lose or be disqualified for Norman Public School bus routes?
Wait, I don't understand that one.
No, because their routes are based on
If
living
so-
within a certain
so-
distance of the school.
So on Main Street, near Willow Branch Road, there is a path where it lights up
Yes.
whenever somebody wants to cross it, even though even though it's lit up, people still drive when someone's trying to cross Main Street. But if one of those were installed at 48th, that way people can safely cross, will the neighborhoods lose the bus routes?
That was put in because that was, that flashing beacon there was put in because we needed to get people safely because there was no bus route.
Yeah, even though people still
Yeah.
do
But
acknowledge
to your
people trying
point,
to
when
cross
we
Main
start talking
Street.
about the flashing lights, that's one that's in existence and people don't really heed it. And that's why we're nervous about doing those mid-block without stop control. Or, unless you do something like the Hawk system, which, that's $180,000.
Yeah.
So, that's, but none of the other options that we've looked at are going to do anything to control speed. Even stop signs and stoplights, people will just speed between them.
Yeah, it's almost impossible to control drivers and what they're going to do.
Yeah.
People are gonna
I
speed,
found
they're gonna
it's
speed.
really hard,
Yeah,
really hard.
it's really hard to control human behavior.
Yes.
I did see one comment from someone about if we just had more police patrol. In your experience, is more police trying to enforce speeding an effective way in a city our size, especially 1,000 miles of paved roads?
It works well when they're there, but as soon as they leave, then the problem comes right back.
So I think people do speed on James Garner Boulevard right past the police station too. So, and I know, in a city this large especially, even if we had 300 officers, we still have 200 square miles of city limits, so.
And we did, in response to the questions that were asked, we did ask, PD did go out and do some additional patrol for the area.
I think sort of I think like the Hawk system, if we were to do one on 48th at Kathy Lynn, that seems to be the mid-mile point. That would probably be a good thing to explore for the future. Do we have traffic count data on 48th over the last 10 years since the plan was adopted? Has it increased? Has it decreased? I agree with you about it's completely developed out on both sides pretty much, except for that corner down there. So we probably won't see, I wouldn't imagine there'd be much of an increase, especially because it's a dead end to the south and a dead end to the west
Correct.
at Main and 48th.
We have collected that data. I couldn't tell you off the top of my head what it is. I'm thinking it's fairly flat though.
If that would be helpful, whenever there's a town hall meeting about it. Is there data on the Main and Rock Creek road diet since they were put in a few years ago on traffic counts before, traffic counts since? Have there been more crashes or less? Are
I'll
people
certainly
speeding
pull that.
more or less? That type of stuff. And then especially where it goes on Main Street from 4 lanes to the 3 lane. And, we've heard comments about, people speeding to try to be the first one over there. And there's been, road rage incident. I don't know if the police necessarily linked it to that or not, but that's kind of where it did happen. So I could see that somebody cut you off and then people get in a fight about it. But if there's data on how the Rock Creek and Main road diets, how effective they've been at reducing speeds, reducing crashes, I think that would be helpful for Councilmember Montoya and the residents.
Previous studies, yeah.
And then, when was 48th Avenue last repaved? Probably more than 10 years ago,
Yeah.
I guess, so.
Yeah.
But you're saying it's in the priority list, but there might be other priorities that need to be repaved if we didn't go forward with this right now.
Right.
So it could probably last a few more years in its current.
We really do think it needs to be addressed probably within the next 2 years.
Next 2 years, okay. I mean, for me, I think road diets and traffic calming is something I personally support for sure. I think it is a proven effective way to slow traffic down. Even Councilor Castleberry, who was on council when we did the Main Street one, even said, yeah, it definitely works to slow people down. Slows me down every day is what he said. So it may be effective in that sense, and I think it's appropriate in a lot of places in Norman. I definitely want to see us explore more places in Norman. But I do, when we did that one, I supported it because I felt the council member that represented Ward 3 at the time was supportive of that, and he had spoken with residents. And I would like to see this happen, but I'm also in a position where I would defer to the council member who represents the area and the residents. And so if we'd like to have arranged for a meeting with a town hall type meeting with the neighbors and the HOAs and city staff and us, I'd be happy to be there too. And kind of go over this stuff with everybody and make sure everybody's got all the facts about how this came about. We're not doing this project so we can put bike lanes in. It's the streets being repaved, and it's the opportunity, and it's in our plan that directs staff to this is what we need to do. So your staff's just following the plan that's been adopted. So we can get that all out on the table and have a discussion. And if residents and Councilmember Montoya still don't support it, then we don't have to do it. So does that sound?
That sounds fair.
Okay. All right. And then is there a time, like we need to make a decision by February something, or?
At this point, we will just pull the request for funding of this roadway and readdress it later, and we'll reappropriate those funds to another roadway.
All right, we can, let's have a few conversations.
Yeah, give us
See
some
if
time.
anything changes, and if not, we can notify staff that we don't want to proceed, and if everybody changes their mind, then we'll tell staff to proceed, I guess, so. Councilmember Dixon.
We're gonna proceed with Interstate Drive.
We'll discuss that, I'm not sure. We're kind of gonna put those two together as a bid. Interstate Drive on its own probably won't be a good enough bid to get anything done on it. So it was the combination of the projects together being, $850,000. When we go out and bid these small projects, either the numbers are too high for us to award, or we don't even get bidders. So we try to package things together in a way that we can make a bigger bid package. So I don't know, we'd have to go back and just totally sit down and relook at that.
Whatever the next priority might be in the repaving schedule, ranking. Okay. Any further comment or questions from council members about this? Okay. All right, well, I guess we can figure out whatever time and dates to get everybody together in the neighborhoods and stuff, and then we can reconvene in this committee in a month or two or whatever the best path forward is. So let me know.
I will.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay. No further comment or question from council? Okay, I did have one thing I just wanted to bring up for next time. Can we, now that we talked a few months ago about getting traffic data on the new James Garner Boulevard and the roundabout, collision data, are people speeding, how much traffic is using it now? I've definitely noticed the Acres and James Garner intersections becoming a little bit more difficult to get through now, which is good. That's what we thought would happen. But and this can be next month or whatever. But data on James Garner, the new boulevard. If we have any traffic data on Porter since that project's been complete, and James Garner has opened up, are we seeing less traffic? Are we seeing more? And then specifically if we have any data on James Garner and Acres intersection. With how people are using it.
Well, that would have to be, we'd have to do studies to perform all that. No, we do not have data.
Okay.
We don't have loggers out there doing that. We would have to schedule, we need some time to put that together. We've got a lot of studies we already have in queue. We're also starting to, we're gonna have a discussion on Highway 9. There is some movement out there. So I don't know that this may not be the best time to try to pull all that data with other priorities that we have, unless we want to reprioritize.
Maybe a goal of it opened in August, if by August we could have some.
And I think that's a
Year
reasonable
data,
timeframe, because we
okay.
want to make sure we give enough time for really to get it to normalize. I still see a lot of people are still figuring it out. It is getting a lot of use though.
But we would have crash data, right? Like police department would have collision data for the roundabout and for the intersection at Acres and James Garner, so we could take a look maybe at if we're seeing any issues with that. So maybe just collision data on those 2 points next month or whenever, and then maybe a more comprehensive look at it down the road on the.
We'd be happy. We're actually excited to go out and do the
Yeah,
traffic
I'm-
counts and look
I'm
at it and
excited to see it too.
see what our numbers, what our projections look like. How close did we get? Did we hit them? Did we miss them? I still think it will change even more once we extend James Garner further south and get those improvements completed. So I think that we'll still continue to see it grow as that extends further south, with a little bit better traffic.
Maybe a update on phase 3 next time if on the where we're at on time.
So I can give you a brief on that one. You will be seeing on the 28th, right? The BNSF. We've finally got an agreement with the railroad to put in the interconnect for the signal at Main and James Garner. That's going to be one of our big hangups. Without that, we couldn't really move forward. So we finally, Beth did some great work and helped us get through that. So we've got that on your agenda. So you'll be able to approve that. That's one of our next steps. We are looking at bid dates at this point. We're looking at wrapping plans up and bid dates. So it'll be in the near future.
Okay. All right, thank you. Any final comments, questions from council? Okay, thank you all very much. Thank you, staff. This meeting is adjourned.